Hello and welcome to episode 1202 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Wednesday, August 2nd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
I was not traded.
No, we were not going to trade you,
No.
dude. No one was meeting our price for
That's
you.
not what the rumors said. I was
Okay.
on multiple live streams yesterday.
Nightingale tweeted that out, though. He
Yeah,
said he tried to make those, you being on other streams, like you were leaving. He was trying to put a hug watch out there. But what stream did you end up on?
this
Mine.
one, this one, and the one
So,
with you and Nick, and
yeah.
but Scott Chu said that Pitcher List traded him for me, and I had to invoke my no trade clause.
It wasn't fine. The medicals never.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
I'm
So
old. My medicals are never going to be good.
it was a fun deadline, though. I love, by the way, kind of seeing the industry of deadline shows pop up. I'm going to be an annoying douche and say that Nick and I started it because we kind of did. At least on the internet space. Obviously, trade deadline shows been happening forever, but we did our fifth, and there were several great ones out there. I know you were on Joe Rico's. I saw a few others out there.
I was
What other
on.
ones were you aware of?
I was on the Top Wars one. I did
Yeah, I
Joe
saw the Top Wars.
Rico's, and then I joined you and Nick for quite a while.
Mhm.
So I saw RotoWire was doing one. I think Jeff Erickson and Fred Zinke, I think, were doing it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but definitely go and take that a look. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun day to kind of sit around. I mean, we're all sitting around watching TV anyways, right?
Exactly.
So you
We're all like
might as
waiting for
well,
everything.
yeah, as opposed to just like live tweeting everything. It's way more fun to actually be sitting around with your friends and talking about it as
Totally
things
agree.
happen. Would have liked a little bit more fireworks, especially at the end. I think, though we
For
did hit the
yesterday
over.
specifically. Yes,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
did. Yes, we did. Go ahead. Tell what the over under was that you set, and it smashed the over.
Yeah, we were like, how many deadline deals happen after 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock Eastern? And I originally set the over under at 5, and you were like, no way,
It's like
two
no,
and a half,
because
two and a
because
half.
we trickled to the finish. I was like, no, you got to bring that down to 2.5. We crushed that quickly, and then I think by the time we signed off, there were 6, so the number came through, and then there was another one right after with Spencer Howard, with Spencer Howard's deal to hit 7. So yeah, 7 came in after the buzzer. That was pretty big. Now none of those were major. There
The
were some
Scott
impactful ones.
Barlow,
The Barlow
yeah,
one.
Barlow one. Yeah,
I would say
pretty
Barlow was the
impactful.
biggest after. But yeah, a few guys kind of left, not traded. But all in all, I'd say a good deadline if you encompass the entire period.
Yeah.
If you just go off of yesterday, I'd say like a C plus B minus. Like it was fine. It was good. Like there were guys that moved. It moves that we expected happened, but there were no bangers outside of JV. But once Scherzer went, was there any universe where Verlander wasn't going?
I don't think so. I think it was just a matter of where did Verlander want to go since he had the full no
Exactly.
trade clause. And I think one of the reasons why this deadline, the actual deadline day, feels a little bit lackluster is because we kind of knew who was moving. Like
That's the thing
kinda
too.
had-
No surprises.
yeah, there wasn't like this, big Juan Soto deal that happened where everybody went, "Whoa!" Like I can't believe this.
Who
one.
would that have been? Cease?
Yeah, I
Cease
think
the only guy who could really
Cease-
make that sort of impact.
Yeah, I mean, if the Padres had sold, I mean,
Yes,
I guess,
I was going to say that too.
A Blake Snell or even a Juan Soto. Like there had been talk early, kind of in trade season, that Juan Soto could be back on the block. Maybe the Padres try to recoup a lot of the prospects they sent over for him. So, but I think rightly so, the Padres held on to their pieces.
Yeah.
There's
And
just
then
too many buyers.
That's the thing too. It's so interesting, like where teams are at. You can make cases for teams buying and selling type of deal, right? Like if the Padres sold Snell and Hader while still trying to kind of remain competitive just to make sure they get something for them, you could have seen that. Like Nick Pollock was saying, well, is this Rich Hill G-Man Choi deal? Is this in preparation to move? Is Hill going to be Snell's backfill, or are they competing? I think the only other thing besides Cease that could have really shaken the ground was if an Arenado or Goldie thing had happened with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
It was the only 3 players that were really going to be like, outside of somebody that's just way off the radar, like a Soto. Well, not way off the radar for Soto, but I never thought they were going to sell. So we did get some moves. In fact, the biggest move ended up being the one that didn't happen with my boy Eduardo Rodriguez. We'll get to that in a moment. We do have one tidbit of news, and it's a big injury that I think plays down at least in 12s, maybe some 10s, because this guy's been playing very well lately. Brendan Donovan injured, and then boom, out for the year now, having surgery. This is a bummer. Obviously, this doesn't really impact the Cards negatively in terms of contention or anything, because they were selling everything, but it does cost them a player who was having a nice little season here. Right elbow strain, gonna need flexor surgery. That's big. I'm also wondering if you're worried about how this might affect Donovan for the future. Remember, there was talk of like a power breakout. He only has 11 homers, but that is a power breakout. I think he had single digits all last year.
Yeah, I think he 5 last year.
Yeah, so he panned out, and he was pacing to pan out nicely. 281, 11 homers, 5 steals. He put up a 281, 5 homers, 2 steals last year in 100 more plate appearances than he had. So Donovan now out for the year. I don't know if this is going to impact into next year, but where do you stand on Donovan now in like a keeper situation? Talk like NL maybe, where he's a single digit price.
Yeah, if he does need Tommy John, which is what it looks like he needs, that's typically 6 months. So you're thinking, well, like beginning of August right now. So maybe he's ready by the beginning of March, or
so
at
then
least
maybe just a little
beginning of season. So yeah, maybe he misses the first month or so of the season next year. This is a huge bummer for me, like a massive bummer for me. Like
Did you just trade for him?
No, but I've had Donovan on so many teams. I actually had to trade for somebody else because it left me without a second.
Oh, that's what it was. I knew we had talked about something trade related with you and Donovan.
I did make a trade for Bryson Stott yesterday from CJ Kaltenbach of Guru in Tout Wars. So I think I sent him Jordan Walker, which is a bummer, but he's also a Cardinals fan. So I figured it was like a nice little, hey, here you get one of your dudes, and I can have a second baseman that they'll play for me the rest of the way. So because Nick Pollock will still not trade with me.
He refuses.
I brought it up on the live stream.
He's ducking.
He's like nah.
He's ducking you on trades, but so Donovan out for the year. That's a bummer. Who's gonna pick up some PT there?
I think there's a chance Mason Wynn gets called up.
They were talking
at some point.
They were talking a little bit about him yesterday on the broadcast. The excitement around him, saying that he's right there knocking on the door at AAA, but he's 21. He's still kind of raw. So the broadcast was kind of in between on whether or not we're going to see him.
Do they want to start his clock in what is now a lost season?
Especially for this season, exactly. They got like a Taylor Motter and a Jose Fermin, couple guys.
Edmund will be back at some point. So like,
who's that?
Tommy Edmund will be back.
Yeah, back yesterday. First game back yesterday. So there you go. So basically, Gorman and Edmund up the middle right now. Gorman, off a DH playing second. Where exactly was Donovan playing though? Because he wasn't. He was DHing
because he couldn't throw.
That's right.
And in spite of the fact that he was DHing with his injury for the last month, he was playing so well. Like it was
blazing.
Yeah, it's a huge. He's not usually a guy like we care that much about in fantasy, but like he'd been playing so well in spite of the injury, like that he was 12-team viable, and even like you said, some 10 teams. So it is a kind of huge loss, especially with his multi-positional eligibility.
Yep. Donovan qualifies everywhere, and I'm gonna make it a little personal and express my bumness about it, like you did. I'd picked Donovan up mid-May. Somebody cut him, and I was like, I'll take a shot. I wanted him during the season. I got a 295 average, 8 homers, and 3 steals out of him. That's a big piece, and he's one of those guys. You just mentioned the eligibility. I can't tell you how many times he saved my bacon with being able to go for somebody on the waiver wire because I could just move him around anywhere. And so, I'm really bummed here, both just in general because you hate seeing somebody kind of lose their season there to an injury, but also personally because it affects my team. But let's talk some trades. We got lots to go through. Obviously, some of the lower ones don't need a deep dive, but we do have some big ones out front. Let's talk about Justin Verlander. Like I said, once Scherzer went, it was just a matter of working out the logistics of trading JV. because what are you keeping him for at that point? And they do, in fact, work out a deal with him going to Houston along with a boatload of money to make sure that they get another good return, which they did. Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford going to the Mets here. Let's talk Verlander from the Mets to the Astros. What's your initial thought of him coming back to a team where he's been an elite before?
I mean, I think this is just like kind of a perfect landing spot for him. He knows Houston. He's comfortable in Houston. I mean, when healthy, he's a stud, and he gets to go back to another team that is going to be really, really good for his win potential. It's obviously a little bit worse park, or a fair amount worse park, but like I'm not super worried about that for Verlander. No. So I think he's, there's not a whole lot of fantasy analysis here. I think the one question is, if you're in an AL only league, are you blowing your fab on Verlander or Scherzer? Yeah. And I think the answer for me is it's on Verlander. I'm a little bit more skeptical of Scherzer moving parks.
That's 100% where I'm at. Also, I mean, obviously Verlander's my favorite player, my favorite pitcher ever too. So maybe there's just bias there. So you make your own assessment. They're both close. I used to be in an NL only league where I loved having the traded players come over and really figuring out the logistics of that. So it is nice to have two aces for the AL. I wonder how that's going to change some races. We'll see how that goes. Let's talk some Gilbert and Clifford going to the Mets. And of course, they got Luis Angel Acuna in the Scherzer deal, and it basically purchasing prospects in a way, right? Because when you throw back that much money with these guys, yes, the guys matter too. These are two aces, but the only way you're getting those returns is to make sure you defray some of the cost on those contracts, which they did. Drew Gilbert, Ryan Clifford, I think both ranked in MLB's top 100. Only Gilbert, I don't think he ranked in our top 100, but he would be close right now with he was 49. That's what I thought. And then Clifford is somebody who's risen. And I think because the MLB list updates throughout the year, like as they call everyone, he's in the top 100 now. What do you know about Gilbert and Clifford for Dynasty? One outfielder with Drew Gilbert and they're both outfielders, right? Clifford's an outfielder too.
Yeah.
So a couple outfielders. What do you got on Gilbert and Clifford?
Clifford may end up being a first baseman. He's not super great defensively, and I'm pretty sure he's like a pretty big guy. Clifford's a little bit farther away.
Yes, 3 years younger.
So I think his estimated debut date is like 2026. So a lot of power in Clifford, but a lot of swing and miss. So kind of your prototypical either corner outfielder or first baseman. Gilbert, I think here is the real prize. We have him just inside the top 50 in terms of prospects. There's decent power, but I think more speed, but a pretty good hit tool. So you're talking about a guy who could probably hit like 270 and steal maybe 20 bases, but not be punchless, which is pretty nice for fantasy. And I think he's pretty close to being ready. And now that the Mets have traded away so many pieces, I think there's a chance he's up before the end of the year. So he's definitely a guy to kind of just keep an eye on. I don't think you're necessarily stashing him in any formats. But keep an eye on for the rest of the season because he could make a September debut.
That'd be really interesting. I like Drew Gilbert. And by the way, I picked up some things yesterday in chat regarding Clifford, and I thought I'd read that he was in the MLB's top 100. I do not see that. He is 6th in the Mets system. Jet Williams is 5th, and he's in the top 100. I do not see Clifford in the subsequent 20 players after that. So
Jet Williams having a really big year in the minors this year, by the way.
Jet Williams is pretty big. So he's 79. I see Justin Crawford, but I don't see Ryan Clifford. But either way, maybe he's on the cusp of the 100. It is a nice return, and I agree with you that Gilby is the one to keep an eye on right now. Let's talk about Tommy Pham to the D-backs. We were kind of waiting for them to make a move, and I know it's funny to hear them get an outfielder because, I mean, it seems like they're always in high stock of outfielders. However, it's almost always left-handed outfielders, right? They've moved a few in recent times here, including Dominic Canzone in an earlier deal to get Paul Sewald. So then they bring in a guy, but it's Tommy Pham. It's a right-hander to go with all their lefties here. What did you think of Pham? This was another guy. It was foregone conclusion that he was leaving. What do you think of Pham to the D-backs? Can he keep it going? He's been having a pretty nice season.
I mean, I think it's a fine move for the Diamondbacks in terms of like, getting Pham. Like I think Pham's a nice little bat that can come off the bench for them or hit
Ooh,
against lefties.
so
But
that means this is bad news for Pham then, is what you're about to say.
I think it is bad news for Pham because I mean, right now the projected platoon partner is Alec Thomas, but Thomas is going to play a fair amount because his defense is so good.
Yep.
So maybe Pham gets some more at bats at the DH spot. To me, it just boggles my mind that they didn't end up with a starting pitcher. Like it just,
That's
I
the part
don't
that I didn't get.
understand. And maybe they just thought they were going to end up with someone. And time ran out, and I think the Eduardo Rodriguez maybe threw them for a loop because that was one less pitcher on the market.
Yeah, that he could have gone to New York or to LA, excuse me, and then there could have been other pieces falling.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the point, we'll talk about who the Dodgers eventually got. I was in a similar point for the Diamondbacks where I was like, even Jordan Lyles would be an upgrade just because they need some guys who can eat some innings. That's my concern, is just filling the innings with Tommy Henry going on the IL. So I agree. I thought that they botched it there. I like the Pham pickup. I like the Seawald pickup. I thought they botched it by not getting a starter or two, and they didn't have to be big name arms, right? Jordan Lyles, we would have said nothing about it fantasy-wise. I'm talking about filling the innings without just some AAA guy. I know he's got a 6.15 ERA this year. That would have been better than just, getting sixth, seventh, eighth guy down in your AAA system. So I thought the Diamondbacks flopped there. With regards to Pham, I think he's been pretty viable even in 12s this year because he has 10 homers, 11 steals, 268. Does this trade curb that viability for Pham, 12-teamers?
I think it's pretty close to doing that.
Do you go preemptive and make a move, or do you play wait and see because Pham's been too good just in case he overtakes like a Yuli or some of Lourdes Gurriel's playing time? Where do you go? Do you jump and just go get somebody right now and say, I'm just going to let Pham go? Or do you want to see how it plays out in case he does play more?
Yeah, I want to see kind of how it plays out because they could easily just say, "Hey, you're going to be the full-time DH, and we'll throw you out in the outfield here every once in a while to give guys days off, but for the most part, you're gonna DH for us. You're going to play every day." But I could also see a situation where, he's strictly the short side platoon, and if that's the case, then there isn't enough fantasy juice for him to matter, especially in 12. So
that is a concern for Pham. Let me assuage some fears for those that have Pham. Jake McCarthy sucks.
Yeah,
that's my counter. And actually has a reverse platoon this year with a 644 against righties, 726 against lefties. And so I'm not saying he's a reverse platoon guy, but if they're just looking, they're going to start going off of some of the results at this point in the year, especially when they're fighting. So they're going to see, and it's not just some low BABIP for Jake McCarthy against righties. He has a 333. And it's still only netting a 644 OPS. I think that could be Pham's avenue, is to take a bunch of McCarthy's playing time. Obviously, he's going to play against every lefty. I think he'll play against enough righties. Hold in 12, you're fine in 15s, and still like a streamer in 10-teamers at best.
I think my only pushback on that is McCarthy is a much better defensive player than Pham at this point.
That's fair. But what do you make that trade-off? Or do you let Pham play for 6 innings then and then bring McCarthy in?
I think it's just something we want to monitor kind of moving forward.
Absolutely agree. And then just for the sake of looking at the upcoming schedule here, in the very short term, next week there's a decent number of lefties. And today, Sean Manaea, tomorrow, Thursday. And then next week, it's only a 5-game week for Arizona, but 3 are against lefties. They get Julio Urias, Blake Snell, and Rich Hill. So we'll see how that goes with Pham. Keep an eye on that with the Diamondbacks. He could become a 12-team cut if he is in a platoon. Jack Flaherty goes to the Orioles for Drew Rom, Cesar Prieto, Zack Showalter over to the Cardinals. We figured Flaherty was going to be dealt. Again, once there's a few teams that started dealing guys that they were going to clean house rather. Definitely the Cardinals. Flaherty over to the Orioles. You got to like that. It's a ballpark neutral move, probably. I think Bush overall is good. But then, of course, that left field for Camden is now awesome. And I'm still not used to saying, wow, this pitcher's going to Camden. That's good. That used to be such a death sentence before they made the park move there. Problem is, lefties are the one dominating Flaherty. So his newfound protection against righties for the home runs with that park isn't necessarily helped. 888 OPS against lefties for Flaherty. What do you think of him as an Oriole?
I mean, I feel like this was the best possible solution for Jack Flaherty because I was afraid, man, leaving St. Louis, there are very few parks for contenders that are really great to pitch in. So I was like, get him to Arizona or get him to Baltimore, where he's protected some by their dimensions. So as far as, because I was afraid he was going to end up with like the Dodgers, and Dodgers have like the third worst park factors for pitching this year. And I was like, oh, he's just going to get murdered. Because now you add the home run rate with the giant walk rate, and it's just going to be
that
ugly.
That would have been scary.
And I've got Flaherty in a few spots where like I can't really afford for him to continuously get blown up. So yeah, ending up in Baltimore is like kind of the perfect move for him. Perfect move for them. They really needed a starting pitcher.
They did,
and they clearly did not want to give up any of their major prospects.
Which I get, but as we talked on the deadline show, I really think they were in a position where they could have. I know there was a rumor that the White Sox were asking for Jackson Holliday for Cease. I hope for the White Sox sake that they were kidding, because that'd be embarrassing if they really thought that they could get the number one overall prospect for Dylan Cease. Like, nothing against Dylan Cease. It's more a pro on Holliday, but there's a lot of room left in that system to get something wonderful for the White Sox and still give Dylan Cease. So all we got was a rumor that they asked for Holliday, and maybe they did. Yeah, start high, but I'm not sure that was their asking price. Like, that was the only thing they do.
When I was on the Tout Wars live stream yesterday, I'm trying to remember who it was, but someone made the point that, and this is almost like a dynasty league where like you come in and you go, hey, this is my plan, and I'm sticking to my plan no matter what. And maybe the Orioles said, hey, our plan is for 2024.
Yep.
And we're not going to kind of like deviate from that plan. We'll make some ancillary moves, and maybe we get Flaherty, and that makes us for sure a playoff team. But we're not going to go overboard because 2024 is our real kind of.
And I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
I respect that kind of patience and dedication to the plan. I'd have been a bit more willing. I again, not behind the closed doors to know where the prices really were on somebody like Cease, but that's also team control. So he's there for 24, right? And then you really have somebody who's dominant. Yeah. We think that Grayson Rodriguez is going to get there, and he looks a lot better in the majors since coming back off of his recall. Eager to see what he does tonight in Toronto. I'm a big Kyle Bradish guy. I think he's a nice piece. Mm-hmm. But if you go Cease, Grayson, Bradish as your top three next year, you're really building something. For me, there's a world where Kobe Mayo plus is fair. I can get behind that, or even a Heston Kierstead plus. Like, I thought there was something there. They didn't. They went Flaherty. At least they did something, though. Sitting on their hands, I think, would have been a big, big flop for Baltimore. They did something, and it is an impact move. So, with regards to Rom, Prieto, and Showalter, anything on the dynasty market there for the Cardinals?
There's some nice pieces, but I think they're all pretty far away. I don't know that any of them. Rom is a really, really interesting starting pitcher, but I don't know that any of them in most dynasty leagues right now. I don't think that they're registering quite yet.
Yeah, I have some experience with Rom. We call him CD-Rom in my stream because that was the easiest, lamest nickname we could come up with. But I have some experience with him becoming a nice starter in out-of-the-park baseball. That means nothing for real life, but I just like to point it out. CD-Rom has become a nice little lefty.
And he's older, so like he could actually, considering where the Cardinals' rotation is at this point, he could actually debut pretty quickly. So, or at least they have only, I think, Steven Matz as their the only like starter who's on the docket for like or under contract for next season. So like Rom's probably going to be in the rotation next year.
Yeah, then they can go. Well, now all of a sudden they can get a little pretty lefty heavy because they could go Libertor, Matz, Rom. They could have three lefties in there. I think Michaelis is still in the deal. Yeah,
in a division where a lot of those teams they're facing struggle against left-handed pitching. So
there you go. That could be nice for them. I respect what the Cardinals did. They had just such a disappointing season. They didn't get stuck and say, well, we're just going to keep these pieces. They made a lot of nice moves, I thought. Same with the Mets. I know we already talked Verlander and you talked Scherzer, I believe, on the weekend episode. They did really well here, the Mets. Like, I think they're set up fine. I do think it's weird that they're talking like we're not going to compete now till 25. Yeah. So they're already saying they're going to take 24 off. But I really do think, and that's just the beauty of having all the money in the world, is that they were able to kind of reset pretty nicely with things. But I also think the Cardinals did well with their kind of mini reset here too.
I think the White Sox did really, really well.
Yes, they did.
About a couple more of their moves, but like Luis Patino for cash consideration,
I love the gamble.
I love that gamble. And,
I take that every day. He's still just 23, I believe. Luis Patino.
Jake Eder is a really nice gamble for Jake Berger. So.
Jake for Jake. We're going to get into their two moves there. The Marlins' two moves, which includes one with the White Sox. But let's talk Michael Lorenzen to the Phillies first. Another guy who was a foregone conclusion that they go. Al Avila probably would have struggled to trade him. I have faith in Scott Harris. And I will say, if he hadn't traded Lorenzen, he would have kind of gone down to zero for me in terms of faith. That's how, overreactionary I would have been, but I would have been so mad, especially in this market. I actually wanted to see a little bit more, and the Eduardo thing I'm not mad about. I respect Eduardo's decision. He didn't want to get traded to stay with his family. He earned the no trade, by being good enough to get that in his contract. I respect all that, and the whole calling him out as not wanting to be a winner, I got no room for that. First off, he's won. Yeah. And not every guy is just purely driven by the World Series. That's just the simple fact of it, right? There's hundreds of players in baseball. Not every single one is just singularly motivated by World Series, World Series, World Series. What if three of Eduardo's least favorite players in the league are on the team, right? We don't know, but what if they are? What if he just desperately hates? I'm not going to name names because I don't want to start crap, but I'm just saying, we don't know. And then we go out and we talk some major trash, this loser doesn't even want to. And by the way, this is not a sneak diss at our boy Matty Wood. He did have a take like that, which was discussed online, and he's an open-minded guy to where he's not going to be digging in his heels. Rob Silver pushed back on it. I gave some pushback, but he was not alone. And there were people saying way more out-of-pocket things than, and I don't even think Matty was out of pocket. He was just being a Dodgers fan. But there were people saying crazy things about Eduardo and what this means about him. I had no problem with him. I wanted to see what they would have gotten from the Dodgers, of course, as a Tigers fan, but I respect his decision. So Lorenzen was dealt, though. Hao Lee over to the Tigers from the Phillies. We'll talk about him in a moment. But what do you think about all-star Michael Lorenzen going to the Phillies?
I think this is a disaster waiting to happen. I think the Tigers did a really, really good job of getting rid of Lorenzen and getting something back in return, but this is going to end really, really poorly. Mike Lorenzen has a 2.02 ERA versus teams under 500 and a 5.82 ERA versus teams over 500.
Yep.
He's moving from the easiest division in baseball to one of the toughest divisions in baseball, moving from a pretty good park to pitch in to a not very good park to pitch in. And now the Phillies have a decision. They're going to have to move either Suarez or Sanchez out of their rotation.
They're going 6 for a couple weeks.
Okay.
So it's a little preview here. And we talked about this on the show yesterday. And I believe you were there for this combo. They've got Lorenzen, Sanchez, Suarez, all guys who've been swingmen, right? Yep. And I know Lorenzen's an all-star, but if it goes like you're saying, he could be the one in the bullpen. If you're handicapping it right now, where do you stand on this little 2-week trial of Lorenzen, Sanchez, and Suarez, and how are you planning for one of them to go back to the bullpen? Assuming an injury doesn't create the natural opening, which is probably what will happen because that's how pitchers work.
I think Sanchez will be the guy who goes back to the bullpen.
I have to go. I'll see you. I love you.
He's the least deserving of anyone to go back to the bullpen, but
I know.
He has less innings on his ledger in terms of what he's done in the past, and he's getting pretty close to the amount of innings he's already thrown, or he threw last year. So I think at this point you start looking at okay, he's going to be an electric arm no matter where he is, but maybe he's a 3-inning guy out of the bullpen after Lorenzen gets blown up or after Suarez gets hit around, So
actually, so that could be a sneaky way to get some wins, assuming Lorenzen or Suarez doesn't give up like 8 runs. But if they go 4 innings, because their pitch counts are getting run up, and then Sanchez comes in for those 3 middle innings, maybe there's still some deep league value then. I hope you're wrong that it's Sanchez, but that was also what I was saying yesterday. Because I know how the hierarchies work and the freaking, seniority type of thing, especially if it's close, right? Lorenzen, Sanchez, Suarez. Yes, he's pitching the best of them right now, Sanchez. But, like, you look at their track records, all 3 are pretty close. They're going to go with the youngest guy getting thrown back to the bullpen, usually. Yeah. I hope that they buck that trend. Now, with Lorenzen and your concerns about how this is going to go, Are you moving off of him anywhere? Like he's pretty viable in 12s, 3.58 ERA, 110 WHIP. Like you're not just cutting that outright. But what are you doing if you have Michael Lorenzen in a 12? Are you stocking up some reinforcements off the waiver wire, or are you just outright saying I'm going to cut him preemptively? Where do you stand in 12s with Michael Lorenzen, because he is very rosterable there?
I don't think you can cut him right out. He's just been, I think, too good overall. I'm trying to trade him. Any league where I have the ability to trade, I had him in the Dynasty League. I traded him, a couple weeks ago. I've been writing about trading him for like the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And to his credit, like he's still pitched well enough where he's been viable over these last 6 weeks. So maybe I sold a little bit too early. I just can't imagine this ends particularly well in Philadelphia for Lorenzen. So I would definitely be trying to move him right now.
Yeah, that's my concern too, is about how well this is going to play or not play, as it were. So be careful there with Lorenzen. I agree. You can't preemptively do it, though. He's just been entirely too good. You got to at least play it out a little bit. Let's go to the Marlins. They made 2 big moves. I'm actually going to flip them on the sheet here and put them in the chronological order. First, Jake Burger over to the Marlins. I don't know if you saw his interview. Listen, it's always tough to get traded. He seemed really bummed about it, though. He's excited about going to the Marlins and getting in the playoff hunt or whatever, but when you're with an organization, you're getting traded from your first organization, it's tough, especially all the trials and tribulations that Jake Burger's been through. I think people might forget or just not know. He was number 11 overall pick in 2017. Like, he was a dude. Injuries have absolutely ravaged him, and he's finally getting something going this year, and then you kind of get the rug pulled out with a trade. And that's always just a lot, right? It's just a lot to handle. But he's hitting 25 homers, 214, 279, 527 line this year. It's been all or nothing, but I think an all or nothing power guy is kind of exactly what the Marlins needed. If they'd have gotten another like 18 homer type dude, who has a middling slash line, I wouldn't have liked it. But I like that they got another true power source in Burger. What did you think of this trade? Burger for Eater, Jake for Jake.
I love this trade for both sides. I felt like this was
Me too.
A really, really smart move by the Marlins. I know there's some concerns, and you yelled at me pretty good on the live stream yesterday about Burger taking a dip, in power. But I think he's got real manpower. I'm not super worried about his power potential in Miami, and we've seen the White Sox play games with his playing time, all throughout the season. So I think this cements him as a middle of the order bat, going to hit right next to Jorge Soler, which is just a fantastic, middle of the order for Miami. So if someone feels like, oh man, this is going to kill Burger, I'm buying right now. I think this is a really good buying opportunity, because I do think there are going to be people who think that Miami is going to kill his value. I don't think it will. I think he's going to be fine.
I think it's going to kill his value. Let's just be clear. I said it will hurt his value, because by the very nature of going from Chicago to Miami, it is a worse park. So it will hurt his value. And I didn't even hit you with this yesterday, which might really sting you. He has a 990 OPS at home, 618 on the road. So maybe Jake Burger is in some big trouble. I was just saying that it does hurt to go to that park. He has big boy power that plays anywhere. But when you move the dimensions back, no matter how you break it down, it's going to hurt, because not every hit that he has automatically, clears the fence by 50 feet. So that doesn't matter, though. There could be some that kind of die in that center field or even in that left center alley there in Marlins Stadium. So we'll see how that goes. I do love what Burger's doing, though. I do believe in his power. You're certainly not cutting anywhere right now, because he's just been too good to not stick with, and see how this goes with the Marlins. And again, I love it from their side, just getting some power. Even if he's somehow worse than the 279 OBP that we've already seen, Frankly, if he has like a 2.25 ISO, which is slugging minus batting average or better, I think it's huge. He's at 313 right now. It's been crazy. 527 slug, 214 average. If he's in 300 territory, that's wonderful. But even at like 2.25, 250, they need that kind of pop with the Marlins. And they got a second piece too, which we're going to talk about in a moment, Josh Bell. But let's talk about the returns for the White Sox. You talked about how they had a good deadline. I fully co-signed that. Jake Eater is the return here. A guy on his way back from TJ. Big time live arm from the left side. Lots to like. Former guy from Vandy. I think his stock is down a little bit because he's coming back from TJ. But this dude has major upside. Good get for the White Sox. Talk to us about Jake Eater, Eder, for those unfamiliar with him.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Logenhagen's quote or somebody else's quote, but the quote on the front page of Jake Eater's Fangraphs page is he's potentially a Spencer Strider from the left-hand side.
Yep.
Like, that's pretty fucking ballsy for anybody to write. And maybe that was written before, like, Spencer Strider became what Spencer Strider is, but there's a ton of upside in this, in this arm in Jake Eater. So, like, a guy, to be quite honest, I didn't know very much about until yesterday. But after kind of reading a lot of the reports from a lot of different places, I'm pretty excited for the White Sox. It's a really, really good get. He's a little bit more advanced. He's coming back from Tommy John, like you mentioned, so I don't expect him necessarily to debut this year, but maybe a debut next year. And Jake Eater is a mainstay in the Chicago White Sox rotation. So fantastic trade for both teams.
Yeah, really, really like that. 24 years old for Jake Eater, has 30 innings at AA, 10 at A ball this year as he works his way back. Should hopefully finish in AAA, but yeah, there's no reason to necessarily debut him until next year. But I really am excited for Jake Eater. Good get there. They weren't done. Again, they need power. And I will admit, Josh Bell's power is not as prodigious as Berger's, but he's also a bit more of a well-rounded bat too. Even though he is struggling this year, one of the things you always have to remember with trades is what are they trading from? Like, what does the guy that they're getting replace? Not just what is Josh Bell doing. So, yeah, you get Josh Bell, and he has a 96 OPS plus this year, which certainly doesn't jump off the page. It would be like the fourth best qualified OPS plus on the Marlins. Well, before you include Berger, so fifth best. Urias, Soler, Sanchez, De La Cruz, Bell, and Berger. So there you go. They added two of their best hitters yesterday. This Bell move was kind of surprising because of the team that got it done and because the Guardians traded them and they're in contention. But this was another move that I really thought made some sense here. I like this move. What do you think of Josh Bell going to the Marlins?
I like it a lot too because he's a switch hitter. So like, this team was starting to look a little bit left or righty heavy.
Yes.
And so adding Bell, who can kind of help, give you that right left when you need it, I think is really, really nice. Bell's not a kind of change the world type of hitter, but he's probably going to hit in like 6th or 7th in this lineup. This lineup went from being pretty gross and the team was dependent on pitching to, hey, this is a real legit lineup.
Yeah.
Especially 1 through 7. So I think the Marlins did a really, really great job of not breaking the bank on anybody, but still putting together a really, really strong trade deadline. And I think they're going to give a lot of teams, the run for their money in that wild card race.
I certainly agree with that to a T there. Urias, Soler, De La Cruz, Jazz, Berger, Bell, Avi Garcia. If Avi can get some things going too, how clutch would that be? Because then you're looking at basically 3 additions. He's only been back for 2 games off the IL. So that 5, 6, 7, Berger, Bell, Garcia, are essentially all additions right now from what they've had over the last several months. And I think that could be really big. I'm not holding out a ton of hope for Avi. He just hasn't really been there recently, but Berger and Bell should bring some nice returns there. Gene Segura and Khalil Watson go in this deal. Segura is going to be instantly cut. He was basically going to be DFA'd by the Marlins anyway. I guess they let the Guardians do the honors. Like, do you want him? Because they're cutting him. But Khalil Watson is the pickup here. Former first-round overall pick just from 2021, but the stock has dipped a little bit. I want to say there has been some off-field stuff, but I should look that up because I don't want to be besmirching someone's name without knowing that. 2021 draftee, first-round pick, another first-round pickup here. for an AL Central ball club from the Marlins with Khalil Watson. What do you know about the 20-year-old middle infielder having an okay season at high A? He's got a 104 WRC plus 7 homers, 14 steals. What do you think of Khalil Watson for the Guardians?
I mean, have we ever seen Khalil Watson and Josh Lowe in the same place? Because I think this is the same kind of profile. It's a guy who's going to swing and miss a ton. He's going to strike out. He's going to run hot and cold. But, man, when he's hot, it's going to be hot. There's power. There's speed. And I think there's going to be a fair amount of opportunity here, at some point in the near future for Watson. So if you like those boom or bust prospects, that's what Khalil Watson is. Like, he's a guy that, could be a star if things come together for him. Or he could be a, fourth outfielder or quad A player. So,
yeah, well, no, he's a middle infielder. So he's like Josh. Like Josh Lowe on the infield, but that same sort of like you said, all or nothing kind of profile. Has the power and speed though. Khalil Watson does. The only thing I can see here, nothing off the field. In fact, he got suspended for like using his bat as like a gun and then like kind of doing a shooting gesture at the umpire, which, hey, don't do that. Kind of goofy, but also not the biggest thing. So again, if there's anything else, let me know on Twitter at Sporer. But I thought I'd heard something that he had some off the field stuff, but I'm not seeing anything in his Wikipedia that makes him seem like a bad dude. But maybe a change of scenery is right for him, because I know that last year was really tough on him. He didn't play how he wanted to at age 19, but only age 19 in the A ball. So I think maybe he was being too hard on himself, Khalil Watson. But I like this pickup for Guardians, and I love it for the Marlins. They continue to contend.
It's interesting because for the Guardians, like, this is not their type of prospect. Like, usually they want like high contact guys that maybe have a little bit lower ceiling. And so it's interesting that this is the guy they went after to kind of get.
I kind of like it though, right? Shoot for something a little bit different here. What do you think of their deadline? Because they're fully contending. They're 2 games back. They have a strong rotation. That's what they're built on. They trade from that strength for Savale with the Savale for Manzardo trade. Now this Bell trade makes a lot of sense when you consider that other one, because now it clears some space if Manzardo wants to come, if he can come up later. But even in the here and now, it clears some space because Oscar Gonzalez is recently back. Now, I wasn't super keen on him coming into the year, but he's 25. He did some things last year. They got to play him. They got to see where he's at. I don't think the sample that he's put up this year is representative. So
I think I saw yesterday that the Guardians are going to bring up Brian Rocchio. So
okay. So he's a good middle infielder, utility type guy.
He's their top middle infield prospect. So he's I think going to be their everyday shortstop, kind of moving forward
over Arias.
Yeah, I think Arias goes back to being kind of a utility guy, which is what he should be. So
yeah, good glove though.
I mean, I don't love what the Guardians are doing necessarily.
Okay.
From a win now perspective, obviously.
I like that Manzardo for Savale move.
I love that.
Can Thor really? I mean, he had a decent first outing, and I want to get excited.
It was not Thor. That. It wasn't.
I mean, it was surface level.
2 swinging strikes in the entire outing. Like,
surface level quality.
Yeah.
I don't buy into it at all. By the way, I just want to be clear. They think he can replace Savale. The reason I thought this was a little bit weird for a contending club is because they got all these rookies that got to be running up on some limits here. This is what we're talking about with the D-backs too. It's like Gallen and a bunch of guys that don't have innings. In fact, PJ, our guy watching on playback yesterday in my Twitch stream, big Marlins guy, he was thinking that the Marlins need to get somebody too because of all their rookies and the inning limits that they're running on. Did Cleveland shoot themselves in the foot for this year?
Yes, I think this is just being a little bit too cute. I think this takes them from being a contender to not really being a contender. I think the Twins are going to pull away in the division, and they're clearly not going to compete for a wild card spot. Like, it's division or bust for
that's
the
the tough part. Yeah,
I think even the Twins not doing anything at the deadline, like, they are now the superior team overall. So. It's, I think, a bummer for Cleveland fans, because it's a team that should be competitive if they'd be willing to spend more than like 75 cents on a player.
Yeah, no, I think that is fair, and it is weird to see 2 like legit pieces to the team right now, Lorenzen, or excuse me, Savale and Josh Bell leave. Now, again, I think Manzardo could be up relatively soon and kind of cover Bell. He wasn't exactly tearing the cover off the ball, or in-house with Gonzalez playing more, whatever. But the Savale move, while I do like that trade for the here and now, was a little odd. And they churn out pitching left and right. Maybe they got something up their sleeve. But I don't know if Cody Morris or Joey Cantillo is going to save the day.
Yeah, it's now Noah Syndergaard and 3 rookies. Because I mean,
exactly.
We have no idea if and when Bieber's coming back. Like,
and McKenzie.
Yeah, I think McKenzie's done. So
I'm worried about both.
I am too. I traded for Bieber in a league, but only because it's that massive league with like real life contracts, and I can QO Bieber at the end of the year. Like, I mean,
oh, nice.
That was the only thing. So
that's a worthy shot to take. And like Plesac hasn't been doing anything in AAA, right? We've kind of known for a while that he's fringy. I mean, are they turning Jared Eichhoff into something down
maybe
in the
Cody
minors?
Morris?
Cody Morris is someone I love. But what kind of innings could you get out of him?
Anyway? Yeah, I think he's only been throwing 1 or 2 inning stretches. Like, I don't think he's.
He had a negative strikeout minus walk rate at AAA. Admittedly, 14 2/3. I don't want to freak out over that, and I do like Cody Morris's arm. I'm a Joey Cantillo guy too, but he hasn't really been showing any command at AAA with a 14% K rate and a 1.7 homer 9. So I don't think he's ready. I don't think they have a savior. That's what made this so surprising for me with the Guardians. But we'll see. They churn out pitching left and right. Maybe they will come up with something, but I don't know. Luis Urias goes to the Red Sox from the Brewers. Brewers dealing from some of their depth here, and Urias was expendable to them. I thought it was a decent pickup for Boston. Obviously, they moved Kike Hernandez. It basically kind of fills in for Kike Hernandez then, right, with Luis Urias?
Yeah, I think
younger version.
I mean, I don't even know if he's going to start in the majors, but I think this is just infield depth. It allows them to move.
Over Yu Chang?
Yeah, I'm looking at roster resource right now. Luis Urias not on the roster. So
I'd be surprised.
I think Chang's out of options. So
okay.
And Urias was already in the minors. So I think this is just kind of a little extra depth for them. But Urias maybe just needs a little bit of a new change of scenery, and maybe he can get some things going. So
health's been an issue this year. Yeah, we liked him. I was actually, I don't even want to go back and look at what I spent on him on the waiver wire when he came back, because I was looking for somebody who could maybe spark the offense a little bit. And given how poor I am in Pham now, I'm definitely going to regret this when I find out how much it was, because I don't remember that I spent $64 to a $28 backup bid. This was on May 28th, when we thought maybe there were some prospects for Urias, but clearly I overshot. We'll see if Boston calls him up. Good point on Yu Chang with no options, though. That does become an issue.
None of Boston's bench options have options.
Yeah, so Reyes, Ref Snyder, Arroyo, Reese McGuire, they all are out of options, and so they can't go anywhere right now unless they want to get rid of one of those guys. And I think like Ref Snyder plays pretty consistently against lefties and is having a decent season too. So maybe Pablo Reyes, maybe he gets DFA'd if and when they want to bring up Urias. But for right now, don't have to really worry about him. Let's go to the Padres. Again, we talked about Rich Hill and G-Man Choi going there from the Pirates. And we weren't sure, is this some reinforcements because those are 2 solid veteran pieces, or backfill because they're going to make moves? Turns out it was the former. It was just some reinforcements. G-Man Choi can be the lefty guy against right-handers at DH, and then Hill gives them some pitching depth because they don't exactly have an overfill of starters right now, especially with Waka on the IL. So what do you think of Rich Hill and G-Man Choi going to the Padres?
This is a huge bummer for me. I really thought the Padres were going to be sellers, and so I picked up Robert Suarez everywhere. And then I didn't start him because they were starting the week in Colorado, and I figured it would take a few days. So I could have gotten a dub, and
you were right not to start him though, because he wasn't guaranteed to close, and Colorado. So those were good reasons. I like Suarez a lot, but you were right to not start him. It sucks to leave a win on your bench though.
And now I've got to drop him. Like, he's just not going to be.
You can't keep him now.
Yeah, he's just not going to be the guy. So, I mean, but rightfully so. I mean, for the Padres, because like they should try to compete. Like, this team is still compete. You only have so many years with Soto. they showed last year that, hey, you can backdoor your way into the playoffs and still make some noise. You know, they're really close to getting to the World Series. So I definitely think they should compete. And I would not be surprised if they make the playoffs or even wins this division. Like, this division's not out of reach for them necessarily either.
I wouldn't be surprised by anything from the Padres.
Yeah.
They have enough talent to do literally anything. They win the World Series, I'd be like, okay, yeah, they got hot. Of course they did. This is a good team. I would have thought it was crazy if they sold for the most part, but they didn't. They reinforced. They got a pretty good club. They got to start playing better. Now, they're 2 games under. Can they finally get over 500 and stay? And if so, it could be a hell of a race in the NL West. For Rich Hill's fantasy value, obviously the win probability goes through the roof. What do you think about the move in general? Do you like him as a Padre? Is he 12-team viable for you? Is he just a streamer, team streamer? Where are you at on Rich Hill now that he's a Padre?
I think he's just a straight up streamer. Like, I mean, this Rich Hill's a guy that, like, hey, when he's pitching well, he's pitching well, but he's also a guy that is more often not going to go 4 innings and not give you the opportunity to get a win. I think at some point maybe they tandem him up with, you know, a guy like
Nick
Seth
Martinez.
Lugo.
Or Lugo.
Or Lugo. Or Martinez. Yeah, I think that makes sense too. So, but yeah, I think he's just a straight up streamer.
Easy. I totally agree there because the highs haven't been as high for Rich Hill and the lows are still pretty low when he gets beat. Although I will say, at least the Pirates did this and some other teams. He does have a few really ugly duds on his ledger, but a lot of times these days teams are good at getting Rich Hill out before he really sinks you. And when he doesn't have it, it seems to be pretty clear. If the curveball isn't working, just get him out of there. G-Man Choi, any interest there? 15-team, NL only. Where are we at with G-Man Choi becoming a Padre? Is he going to be a regular against righties?
I mean, the Padres are like Petco's like the only place where like he could have like not gained any value. Like, you know, Pittsburgh's been the worst park in baseball for power this year, and the third worst, the Padres. Like,
wow. So yeah, neutral move there.
Yeah,
better team though. So RBI run opportunities a little bit better.
Probably less playing time because he's going to straight up platoon with Garrett Cooper.
Yep, good point.
So, yeah, I mean, outside of if you were rostering him already, you probably just hold on and kind of wait and see. If you weren't, you're not picking him up.
Yeah, Garrett Cooper and Sean Reynolds came over from the Marlins for Ryan Weathers. Any interest in Cooper? I mean, if Choi's only playing one side, then the Cooper's on the short side, so no interest there, even in NL only, I would think, right?
No, unless Choi gets hurt, I think Cooper's now irrelevant.
And then they picked up Scott Barlow to further reinforce the bullpen, which I like now, because now you're looking at Hader, Suarez, Wilson, Martinez, Barlow as your top 5. That's a nice little quintet there. But it obviously kills Barlow's fantasy value from a saves perspective. Just an outright cut for you.
Yeah, I think so. Go get Carlos Hernandez now. Like he's the guy.
Should have already been preparing for that though. I think in a lot of leagues
we've been talking about him for like a month, and hopefully people already stash him. But if he's still available in your league, go grab him.
Absolutely. Paul DeJong over to the Blue Jays, obviously with the Bo Bichette injury. Thankfully, they said there's no structural damage, so they're not totally afraid that he's going to be nothing for them. But they had to get some backup there. Paul DeJong can kind of play everywhere. Nice utility guy, but does he have any fantasy value?
I mean, about the same as he did before. He's going to play inconsistently. This was a little bit scary because we hadn't gotten the news back on Bo Bichette's injury, and so there was part of me was like, oh my god, is this a sign that Bichette is done? And I can't afford to lose Bichette on my main event team. No, Bichette's going to be fine. DeJong's going to kind of fill in for him until he's ready to come back, and then I think he's just going to kind of go back to being a utility infielder.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how we're going to see it with Paul DeJong. Maybe he catches fire and you can stream him, but for now you don't have to worry too much. I like this little move here. Rodolfo Castro to the Phillies for Bailey Falter to the Pirates. I think it's a nice little major league move for both teams, but it's not super fantasy relevant. Do you have any NL interest in either? Does Falter go into Pittsburgh's rotation? And is Castro of any note to you on the Phillies? Better park now.
Yeah, but he's not going to be on the major league team quite yet. So... Yeah. No, I don't think this is. I mean, Falter is a little bit interesting because he's a guy who's shown some flashes of being a usable streamer, and now he's moving to the best park in baseball for a home run. So I think that Falter provide some really interesting streaming opportunities down the stretch. But other than that, it's kind of nothing.
Assuming he joins the rotation too, so keep an eye out on that.
Yeah.
I think he should, but we'll see. You know, the swing and miss wasn't there for Falter, so that could be a bit of a problem. Ryan Yarbrough to the Dodgers. So we talked about the Erod thing, right? They had a deal in place for Erod. He vetoed it. Their next option was Ryan Yarbrough.
Not many lefties on the market apparently after Rich Hill went. I mean,
they were desperate for a lefty then, because I mean, where do you go? Because Snell, they're not trading Snell to the Dodgers. Matz, Corbin, I mentioned those guys to you, but you talked about how they're not going to want to deal with all the Corbin contract nonsense. But even Matz, do they want him long term? Because he's got another year or two on his deal. So they settled for Yarbrough.
These moves by the Dodgers, and we talked about this pretty at length on Joe Rico's live stream, which I think he's turning into a podcast, so you can go back and listen if you don't want to watch it on YouTube. But I think this is just more and more a sign that they are all in on Ohtani. Like they did not want to commit any long-term money because they want to have all the money available to throw as much as they can at Ohtani.
Unless you were at a certain level, right? Like Erod reached their threshold of like, but they also thought
Erod was going to opt out, in the season, so it's not long-term money. Like, it's not...
True, but even if he did, like, you could afford... Like, that is not an expensive deal. 18, 16, 15.
Any team, especially Dodgers, can afford any price. So
Yarbrough had no fantasy value with the Royals. He doesn't with the Dodgers either. I am intrigued by my boy Cole Reagans, formerly of Texas, now with KC via the Chapman deal. He's going to get a shot. I think this dude's a really live arm. I'm eager to see what he can do. If he has a good... I think he starts tomorrow or maybe even today. If he pops off, obviously he's going to get on everyone's radar. But if he's just kind of like decent and stays a little hidden, I'll be intrigued by that. Maybe I can sneak Cole Reagans. But I want to see what he can do. This is a live arm. He is starting today. So I'm torn where I want him to do well. But if he does too well, then everyone's going to be on it in 15-team leagues. But what do you think of Reagans getting into the rotation for the Royals? Great park.
A great park, a really good matchup today versus the Mets in Kansas City. So he's going to go out there and ball today, and we're going to have to overpay for him in FAB on Sunday. But I'm with you. I really like this. I didn't even realize, I said it on the live stream, I think, with you guys, like, when did Cole Reagans even end up in Kansas City?
The Chapman deal was sneaky.
Yeah, I totally missed that. So really good get for the Royals a few weeks ago. So I like this a lot. I think he's a guy that I definitely going to be watching his start today. I don't know what time it's at. I'm hoping it's during my lunch break, so that way I can go to the sports bar and have a burger and watch some Cole Reagans. I think he's a guy that a lot of people are going to want to pick up for the stretch run.
Yeah, just a really live arm in a great park in that crappy division. There's a chance that he ends up just being really nice for folks. There's a chance he flops too, and he's nothing. But Cole Reagans, Ragans, keep an eye on him. This guy was a big time, or had a chance to be a big time prospect, but got derailed by injuries. Even if you saw him last year, that was at a totally different velo. He was coming back from TJ. His velo's back up. There's some intrigue there. So that's the bigger part of that Ryan Yarbrough deal. And then Andrew Chafin, Keenan Middleton, and Austin Hedges went to the Brewers, Yankees, and Rangers, respectively. I don't think there's any fantasy relevance either from them or from anything that they clear out. Am I right or wrong there?
Yeah, I don't think there's much here.
Yeah, like Chafin's going to be like a lefty helper for the Brewers. Yeah. Keenan Middleton's not going to take over in that bullpen, and Austin Hedges has never been fantasy relevant unless you count catching defense. So that wraps it up. Deadline, like I said, overall was really nice if you count the whole trade period. And then yesterday, I would say was a solid C plus B minus. It was good, had a blast on the show, but no real craziness as far as the trades. One thing we haven't done here was like, who benefits the most? I guess Cole Reagans we kind of talked about from a departure, but do you have any names off the top of your head that you've thought about? Because I haven't yet. I'm going to do my article where I'm going to cover all the moves there. Jeff and I are splitting pitchers and hitters. Anybody that you can think of that really benefits from a departure?
I mean, Carlos Hernandez is the one that comes off
Yeah.
the top of my head.
Anybody on the Mets with their moves is Rafael Ortega. I know he's like 33. He's like 32 actually. Low power, low speed. Is there anything there where he could maybe hit a little stretch?
I guess he could. He got called up yesterday along with like 4 other guys. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he had some pretty useful value in Chicago.
A couple years back, right?
Yeah, it might have even been last year, honestly.
Oh yeah, 7 homers, 12 steals in
Yeah.
118 games. That's 371 plate appearances, but he's 96 WRC plus, like not that bad. In AAA this year, he struggled. Ortega did. He was with Texas, and he put up a 74 WRC plus, but had good plate skills still. 14% walk, 17% K. So I think there could be a little power speed. I don't know. I'll look at all the other stuff to see any dust that might settle that could create an opportunity. Anything with the White Sox? I'm trying to think. No.
Yeah, I don't really think of anything. I mean, Moncada's definitely a full-time guy right now, but I mean that was pretty
Elvis
much
Andrews.
He was already playing, I think, wasn't he? Like,
Well, he
so-
was, and then he wasn't, because now I'm looking at it. He hadn't played
guess-
for like a
I guess
bunch of
Berger was
games.
playing some second base.
Yeah.
So
So maybe some
Andrews.
speed there.
It's
Maybe-
not
maybe
really
some
a lot of graduations that you go, oh, this
I
guy's got
agree.
playing time now.
I agree. All right. Well, then that was a fun trade deadline. Thank you so much for coming on our stream yesterday, too, with me and Nick. That was a blast. You and I will still be back on Friday, so it'll be a quick turnaround. We'll do the 3 up, 3 down, two-step guys, all that normal episode. But
Congressman versus reliever coming Friday.
are you planning it? Let's go. I can't wait.
I think we shall. I'm going to actually reach out to Ellen first and see if she can show up for an episode somewhere along the lines.
If she can, save it for that.
I'll save it. Yeah, but I think it is long overdue. We played some Congressman versus.
You can no longer use Drew Rom, though. I now know that he is a pitcher. So, all right, Justin, have a good day, and I'll talk to you in a couple.
Take it easy.